Hello, welcome to the continuing education video that today we're going to focus on how to onboard the right associate and get them ready for success in your dental practice. So we call this the right associate. Hire and onboard them for success. You know, when we think about associates, we have both good and bad associates. Some things that we look for in good associates is they show up to work on time, they wear appropriate clothing, they do good work, they're culture fit, and they don't complain about everything, and they want to grow as a dentist. Some of the bad attributes of an associate would be they show up to work late, they wear inappropriate clothing, they do bad clinical work, they potentially get involved with your employees, they complain about everything, they're okay doing just class 2 and 3 fillings all day, they're afraid of endodontics and extractions, and they are potentially dishonest to management. So one of the most important things is how do we identify the good versus the bad associates. When we step back and we think, what's the most important day in the life of this associate that you're hopefully hiring? First day would be the day that you put the ad in. This is very important to structure the ad so that they understand what you're looking for and that you can hopefully weed out any associates that you wouldn't want. Second most important day would be the day you interview them. So this is another step where you can hopefully figure out if they're the right person for you or whether they aren't the right fit. Third most important day is the day that they meet the staff. And then the fourth most important day would be their first clinical day. And then after that, their second clinical day, and on from there. So let's start with the first portion. Marketing for the position. When you look for an associate, you have to find really the right person that meets your and matches your mission, your vision, and core values. Hopefully you already have those. Here on the Dental Success Network, we really believe in having your core values set out, clearly written, and make sure that all your employees know that. So if you start from a position of from the first moment, we want someone that matches our core values, that should be in your advertisement. Next would be look in the right places. So, you're not looking on Craigslist, you're finding good study groups or groups, maybe Facebook groups that have people who are also driven, that basically just look in the right places to find those right people. And next would be follow a process. So the process of onboarding an associate starts, first of all, you need to play by the rules of legality, but also just follow the process that we'll outline here to make sure you don't miss anything that you might have otherwise seen coming. And then fourth is don't make promises you can't keep. Be truthful from the get-go with how your practice is doing and how this associate can be expected to perform. When focusing on your mission and vision and core values, you need to do this every day, not just when you're hiring the associate, but also in your everyday interactions with your practice. So your mission is, what do you want to do for your patients, your business, your employees? So, what's the end goal? Vision is where these actions will take your business, and the core values is how you're going to get there. In one of my favorite books called Traction, which is basically the EOS system, EOS standing for Entrepreneurial Operating System, core values are set out usually 3 to 7 items, but they're not really specific to your business. So our core values would not be specific to dentistry. In my company, we have 3 core values. We try to keep it very simple. One, treat everyone like family. Two, bring it every day. And three, be committed. So you could take those 3 core values and apply it to if you were a roofer and you wanted to sell people new roofs. You could say, okay, those are our core values. One of the companies that I admire is a company called Firespring, and this is their core value. One of their 3 core values is we give a shit. And so it means genuinely caring about ourselves and the success of our coworkers, clients, partners, and vendors. This is kind of, out there, maybe more of a millennial mindset, but when you say this core value, it means that you actually are putting in a lot of effort to further the interests of the mission of the company. So next would be looking in the right places. With Dental Success Network, we are also having the DTSN, so the team side, so Dental Team Success Network, but also the DSSN, the Dental Student Success Network. So dental students who are on this network are probably going to be high quality. That would be a great place to look for them. And if you're not looking for maybe new graduates like dental students, then maybe you look to companies like Dental Placement Pros with Ms. Kira Dent, or other websites that have dental job postings. Facebook marketing, if you have any expertise in Facebook marketing, you could also identify a geographic radius plus an age range. You can isolate down a lot of demographics to look for the right associate. And then following a process. So obviously, first step, come up for the ad for the job. Focus on your core values, what kind of dentistry you do, your benefits and pay, and then what you promise them as their employer if they were to come work for you, and what they should do in return for those promises. Second would be advertise in all the right places. And then third, find at least 2 to 3 applicants to potentially hire for this position. We want at least 2 to 3 so that we can see some contrast between the styles and the capabilities of these applicants. If you only have one applicant, you might feel a little bit locked in that that's the only option for you. But in most situations, we have more than one option. And then the interview process, first and second interviews. So when you go into an interview, what are the big things you talk about? Well, in my practice, we always discuss clinical cases. Sometimes I'll bring some models of previous cases I've done and ask them their thoughts on cases, thoughts on different x-rays, just thoughts in general. Try to see what their level of continuing education has been previously. And that's usually the first interview. Sometimes we'll also bring in staff members. So, and sometimes then I will actually leave that interview and let the staff interact with that person. Maybe the staff will take them out to lunch for their second interview. One of the books that I've read recently was called The Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lencioni. The crux of that book is that there's 3 attributes to being a great team player. 1 is to be humble. 2 is to be hungry or driven to succeed. And 3 is to be smart. Now, smart doesn't necessarily mean book smart, but it means have emotional smarts. Then the 4th part is that I always choose on personality. Are they willing to learn, and do they have good people skills? If they don't have good people skills, they are probably lower on my ranking. All right, so next up we have after the interviews. Step number 5 would be doing a background check. This is a must. You never know when you are going to hire an axe murderer. I've made this mistake a few times, and that was before we did background checks. So if you do background checks for your front office, your hygienists, your assistants, you should do it for your associates as well. Number 6 would make a written offer with contract. You should suggest that they have their own personal lawyer review the contract because that's just safe. And obviously your contract should be happy with what you offer and what your lawyers recommend. Next would be get a signed contract and then start working on the onboarding process. Finally, just never promise more than you can deliver. Being humble can never hurt you, but promise that you'll be fair, open, and grow with them. So after they sign on the dotted line, well, congrats, you have another kid. If you've ever seen this movie, it's the voice of Alec Baldwin, and he tries to run the show, and once you hire an associate, they will be just another child for you to help grow. So before onboarding, get a lot of information from them. Number 1, get their entire life story, where they went to school, all of their education, starting from high school, then college, dental school, their dental school graduation date. If they have an NPI number, get that, DEA. All of this information is going to be critical with credentialing them with insurance. Also, all of their history practicing. Which locations did they practice at? Had they ever had any malpractice claims? Had they ever been involved in any litigation? Step 2 would be have a welcome party for them. You know, you're going to want to have them be on good social terms with your employees. So having them in a situation outside of the office where there's some social interaction so they can become more comfortable, that will lead them to be more successful as they grow with the practice. And number 3, it would be a good idea to give them a gift basket of flowers to welcome them, either at their current position or at their home or wherever. This just helps cater some goodwill. And also people would be asking them, hey, who just sent you new flowers? And that would be something that then they would say, oh, this new practice I'm going to work for. And then 4 is work on the next step would be preparing for marketing. So get them to write a short biography about themselves, potentially a letter to patients, and also make sure they're getting their professional headshot that matches the style of headshot that you have on your website and in your marketing materials, which is, point number 5. So let's stop here. Before we go any further, do you have a marketing plan in place for the associate? So marketing could be any of these things, including a local newspaper ad. Sometimes you can buy those. Sometimes you can just put out a press release and the paper will publish that for you. Getting the associate to get onto their neighborhood Facebook pages and publicize that they are new to town or new to the practice. Also Facebook ads welcoming the new doctor and having pictures of the new and senior doctors there, or the new doctors and the location. You can do some Google AdWords targeting the area. Make sure that the doctor's name is on the website, and make sure that the doctor is on all the social media to be able to be publicizing themselves. So, onboarding. So this is the crux of the presentation, and this is very important. Over on the right side, I have all of the major points that we would expect out of associates as we onboard them. So once again, in everything we do, we stress the core values. We stress that why we're doing it and the overarching values as to why. That way, if something is not clearly spelled out in the document, that it tells them exactly what they should do, even if there's not an answer written down somewhere in your operations manual. And obviously, hopefully you have an operations manual written down for almost everything. Sometimes it also helps to videotape the owner or senior doctor giving the Nexus story, the story of how the practice began, how it's grown, and what's the mission and vision and core values. This helps in both hiring associate doctors as well as hiring other staff. And this is kind of a marketing piece for you as the doctor to make sure that everyone understands what your vision is for the organization. So let's go to, and that's the second part. Let's go to expectations. So expectations: show up on time. So that would be, participate in the morning huddle, be a leader. Always you should treat staff with respect. You should have a good working relationship. You don't want it to be too close. You wouldn't want your associate to be too involved with any employees, but treat them with respect. Third would be do great clinical work. They should be worried about quality first and speed second, but they should also understand that at a certain point in time, maybe 6 months to 12 months down the road, that they should be hitting some speed targets for doing the same quality of work as the company would expect, but at a time level that the company would also expect. They should also follow the core values, and they should follow the systems that you have set out in the operations manual. So after they fulfill those expectations, then you should set an expectation for how they dress at work. You could say dress professionally, but to Flava Flav, that means something different. So Disney takes this to the extreme. In Disney resorts, they always call it being on stage or off stage. So when you're on stage, you are professional, you dress professionally, and when you're off stage and clients or customers or patients can't see you, then you can, you don't necessarily have to follow those strict rules. In Disney, they require hair color to only be natural hair colors, unless their character requires them to wear a wig. So there's a difference between red hair, which would be a natural dark orange, and bright red color that would match Flava Flav's jacket there. So when we say they're on stage, we should try to encourage what kind of shoes they wear, whether they wear scrub pants and scrub shirt, or whether they go professional pants or a clinical jacket. What kind of hair they can wear, whether that hair needs to be kept up or whether it can be down over the shoulders, whether they have any tattoos visible, what kind of rings, piercings, and jewelry they have, and whether they have nail polish on their fingers. Those are some of the major things that patients see and judge people on, and so we need to be cognizant of that as we bring employees into our practice, for both the associate and for other employees. Next would be office culture. So you should describe how your culture is. Potentially this is more of the nexus story and how people should learn about your culture in your practice. Are you more on the laid-back side and carefree? Or are you more busy and driven? Maybe you like to have a lot of fun and you have tequila in your waiting room. But basically, you should use how your core values are to state how you want the culture of your practice to be. Next would be everyday items. So you could put into words, what you expect, how their day will go. So one of the things that Dr. Mark Costas has hounded, and I ascribe to as well, is that with each patient, you should ask them 3 questions or personal questions about their day, their life, or talk about the weather before you ever break that clinical barrier and you put on your gloves and your mask. This develops a rapport with the patient, and it gets patients to feel more comfortable with you until you start sticking a sharp hook into their mouth. Also, morning huddle. What happens, first thing in the day when they get there? They should be present for morning huddle. They should know how morning huddle works. And after a certain period of time, they will hopefully take a leadership role in morning huddle, participating with some of the information and the give and take. One of the other things that I like to do is with each patient, while you are working on them, check 3 times to make sure that they're comfortable. This basically just makes it codifies that you care about them. Obviously, we don't want our patients to be in pain. Patients that we put through pain probably aren't going to stay our patients any much longer. So the big thing would be to make sure that they're comfortable. And then same-day treatment. A lot of us strive to, if we treatment plan something and we have time in a doctor room, let's save the patient a trip. Let's get it handled today. So make the expectation of your associate early on that we like to do same-day treatment. It's great. It's a great service for our patients, and it's a great thing for you to fill unused chair time that otherwise wouldn't be used. Another thing would be getting clinical notes done each day. So hopefully we expect that by the end of the day, the doctors have their clinical notes done so that the front office staff and the billing staff can be submitting those claims and closing out those appointments to be ready to file insurance for either that night or the next morning. And then an end-of-day list. Are there any other things that the doctor needs to do or the associate doctor needs to do before leaving for the day? Does that mean look over the next day's schedule, making sure that clinical times are appropriate, making sure that you're ready for the next day, or potentially also looking 1 week out to see if there's bigger problems with the schedule coming down the road. And then sometimes a list of patients to make post-operative phone calls. One thing I like to do is have my staff write onto a sticky note the patient's first name and then their phone number. And if it's a lot of patients, they'll make a clinical note as to what I did, like root canal, RCT, or crown, or EXT for extraction. Having just their first name and phone number, that means I shouldn't have to worry about HIPAA quite as much. But I put that sticky note onto my book that I carry around with me everywhere. And on my way home or that night, I'll call those patients to check in on them. So if we expect that of our associate doctors, we should make sure that that's clear and show them the system for how that goes. The goals timeline. So obviously, the associate that joins you in month 1 is going to be a lot more green and untrained as to your systems than an associate that's been with you 12 months or a year or 2 or 3. So in month 1, what do we expect of our associates? We should write these all down as to what you'd want to do in your practice, and we should hold the associates accountable to this by checking with them at this set interval. So month 1, even before they start, they should read the ops manual or watch any videos and understand all the policies and procedures. Some of these policies and procedures would include supply ordering, which labs are preferred, and how the office runs in general. Your ops manual or operations videos would hopefully show them that, and they'd be able to have a good understanding of how everything works. Next would be understanding fully the clinical offerings of your practice, whether you do Invisalign or whether you potentially have invested in the Blue Sky Bio software and you can make in-office Invisalign trays. That's pretty cool. So they should understand what the practice offers there, whether you do implants, whether you have a CBCT, whether you do sedation, sleep apnea, full mouth rehab. You never want the associate doctor to potentially tell a patient that, oh, we don't do implants here, or we don't do implants on number 19, where maybe the senior doctor does, and you could keep that in-house and it would be a better service for the patient. They should also understand the future goals of the practice. They should be able to repeat the mission and vision and core values by the end of month 1 and speak to those similarly as you, the owner doc, or you, one of the senior doctors, would speak about that. They should also be skillful in using intraoral and extraoral cameras at an expert level. Intraoral cameras are one of the best education techniques to teach the patients about their needed treatment. And so being good at that is extremely important. but also extraoral cameras. If you have a DSLR camera with a macro lens and a ring flash, so that you can take high quality extraoral pictures of, maybe the anterior shot or the occlusal plane, the associate should be really good at that. The associate needs to be the leader in the office, and so if the associate needs those and the assistants aren't getting the highest quality pictures, the associate needs to step in and be able to execute that. And and then the next would be know any time goals for simple procedures. This would be for fillings, single canal, endo, crowns. If they're a newer doctor, they're going to be slower at this, and so they need to at least know what they'll be expected of doing by 3-6 months time period. So by 3 months, then hopefully they'd be able to hit those guidelines for simple procedures for fillings and single canal, endo, and crowns. Those time guidelines would include how much assistant time, how much doctor time, and then how much assistant time to finish up. So in my practice, some of the doctors are 20-30-20, meaning 20 minutes of assistant time, 30 minutes of doctor time, 20 minutes of assistant time. For myself, I go a little bit faster. I do a 20-20-20. So I can do a full crown in an hour, but we always send out those crowns to get manufactured, and then we bring them back 2 weeks later for a 10-10-10 for a crown seat. The next would be that they follow the systemization that the senior doctors have set out for each appointment. This includes what kind of equipment, what supplies are used, and hopefully that would be the same equipment as the senior doctor. By month 3, they should also be learning all the high-tech equipment, whether that's a CEREC, whether that's lasers, the endo machine, or the sterilizer as well. Having the associate learn how to use the sterilizer may seem like a waste of time, but you want the associate doctor to be the leader in the office, and they need to know how to use the sterilizer so that they can hold somebody else accountable if, for whatever reason, the sterilizer starts working incorrectly. That can put a halt to all items in the office if the sterilizer isn't working. And then also set up a CE timeline for getting up to speed. You want, or at least I would want, my associates to be on track hitting all of the required CE courses within 12 months. So by 6 months out, they should be hitting time guidelines for all procedures, including molar endo, implants, and extractions. Now we always have those extractions that don't go well, but for most extractions, this should be the case. Hitting production targets. So by 6 months out, the patient flow, they should start seeing again some more recurring patients. Hopefully they've gained enough steam. They're hitting time guidelines. So their production should be hitting what we expect of them. Taking CE, they should be about 50% of their CE done by 6 months out, and hopefully on track to, take Invisalign classes or implant or other. And then they should be successful at implementing same-day treatment. They should be able to flow those from the hygiene over to the doctor side and make their production even be more because of that. And they should also start to lead team building meetings. Maybe they could start to lead some of the weekly WIG meetings or morning. By 12 months out, they should be finished with all their CE required by the senior doctors. This could include Invisalign, implant placement, endo, and potentially even some practice management courses. And they should also understand intimately all the systems of the office. Sometimes I've actually seen people, for them, by 12 months, they need to pick a system in the office and work to improve it. And that would be a goal for them by 12 months. They should also start to understand the overhead percentage of the business at a higher level with confidential information. So they should understand that they're taking home, 30% of their doctor pay, and they should understand the 10% profitability margin for at least stage 1 of what we consider to be a stage 1 clinic. They should understand some of this. They don't need to get into the weeds, but at a high level, 30,000 foot view, do they understand the profitability of the business? So then for years 2 and 3, we want to just develop them more as a leader and develop their people skills. So that would be a lot of work on year 2. Potentially also some more business skills if they are potentially working to be more of a pre-partner or a partnership track. This would be an opportunity to teach them some of the business side. And year 3, they should intimately know the business systems of the practice. They should understand accounting and bookkeeping, the tax effect of everything that you're doing, overhead percentage, and they should also get better at understanding some of the HR practices that are, legal, what's illegal, and things like that. So in review, we have expectations, attire, office culture, everyday things, and what is their timeline for growth. And so now we go to CE policy and some of the next steps. So CE policy. In general, what courses are they required to take? What will you pay for? Are they required to do it, or is it at their leisure? And potentially above a certain dollar amount, are you going to split the cost 50-50 with them? Remember that CE is an investment. The more you pay, the hopefully more that they will implement and make more money for you. In the breakaway contracts, some of the CE had a clawback clause, so if they left too early, you could claw back some of the money. Then there's also the treatment planning, how to. What is your system for how you do an exam? Dr. Andrew Turchin went through 4 things. He said you have 4 areas of the mouth. You have your teeth, so you check for cavities, fractures, etc. Then you check the gums for periodontal disease, recession, needed gum grafts. Then you check the occlusion, so bite, clenching, do they have other orthodontic issues? And then aesthetics, veneers and whitening. Basically, the key is to do it the same way every time and have the hygienist trained to do it the same way also. It should be just like McDonald's. They should be making this treatment planning burger the same way every patient, every day. And one of the things that Dr. Turchin says is, now I'm more than happy to skip this aesthetic issue, but can I tell you what I see? This is a genius statement. It causes the patient to wonder what they're missing if Dr. Turchin skips this. And that curiosity at least opens the door for you to educate them about what you could do for them that would make their teeth look better. People don't like to be called vain, but it kind of happens a lot. And so sometimes you just need to broach the issue. So first, decay. You should go through with your associate how you treat decay. What level versus incipient, moderate, advanced, or severe, what levels do you say, oh, that's definitely a class 2 composite, or that's definitely a root canal case, or at this stage the tooth is so cracked, as in cracked teeth, do these teeth need crowns, or does that tooth need a crown, or would you just replace this filling? What do you do in cases of this crack discovered after the removal of a filling? You should role play with your associate to help them understand exactly how you frame it and how you discuss, but then how to discuss it with the patient so that they accept the best treatment for what the senior doctors expect. Next would be fractured porcelain. What do you do in these cases? Do you say we need to replace the whole thing? Would you just polish them up? And then what kind of cases do you refer? Extractions. Do you like taking out horizontally impacted third molars, or would you much rather say, okay, let's take out these half-formed wisdom teeth? What about fully formed wisdom teeth? So discuss with your associate when you like to keep them in the practice. When would you prefer that they refer them out to a surgeon or refer to the senior doctor? And then endodontics. When to refer. Do you say, if I have a difficult patient or an access, or I can't see the canal worth a darn? Um, you know, in terms of my practice, I would prefer that they refer them up to the more senior doctors that have done a lot more endo, but if they have a difficult patient personality, I'm more than happy for them to send them out. And periodontal disease. This is one of the tough things because and sometimes in dental school, we just don't get a really deep understanding of periodontal disease. So, what probe depths do you start saying that we need scaling root planing? You should set expectations for your associate as to what that means, 3s and 4s or deeper. And then if it's 7, 8, 9s, do you still keep that in the practice, or do you potentially refer that out to a periodontist? And then do you consider always checking for attachment loss, recession? Do you ever discount cases in patients that can't afford, like maybe charging out 3 out of the 4 quadrants? Or do you always say, no, we will bill out 4 quadrants? And then adjunctive advice. We all have those patients that have a really high decay rate. As the senior doctor, you should set protocol for what sort of things do we offer in the practice that can help with that, whether that's fluoride varnish, fluoride trays every night. What about dry mouth? Do we do biotine? Do we do other Xylamelts or something else? And then for periodontal disease, do we do some of these new mouthwashes that are Part A, Part B, like Oracare, or do we just do chlorhexidine? Do we do Arestin? Stuff like that. So hopefully we're not forgetting anything else, but those are some of the big categories. Now I'd like to review what we do in our practice to both help associates, but also to educate new patients on what our practice does. So this is our new patient PowerPoint. We do this PowerPoint for every new patient that comes in the door, and it educates them on what we look for. We say, hey, thanks for coming in today. I'd just like to educate you a little bit on our practice. We go through our core values. Treat everyone like family, yada, yada. We also have pictures of the doctors in more, normal clothing and a friendly atmosphere. Then we also tell them about our clinics. At this point, we had 5 dental clinics throughout Lincoln. And so then we, show them the map of where we are. And so we educate them that, hey, if you want to find a clinic that's closer to your house, you can always switch to another one of our partner clinics. Then we go through the radiographs. So today we'll probably take a radiograph called a pantomograph. We look for impacted teeth, cysts, tumors, yada, yada. Then we'll also take a full mouth series, and this gets a more detailed picture of everything. We go through gingivitis and say, okay, this is what we look for, and gingivitis means no bone loss. But then we also have periodontitis, where there is bone loss, and we educate them on stage 1, 2, and 3. Then we also look at calculus, or tartar, is what some people call it. What does it look like on x-rays? What does it look like clinically? If they have clinical calculus, we always take a picture of it to show them. And then cavities, either interproximal, or what we sometimes explain to them as flossing cavities, because hopefully they could floss and not have to have such a severe problem, or occlusal, or chewing cavities, and what these pictures look like. Then we'll show them broken teeth, broken cusps like this, and also the associated silver fillings with deep grooves and cracks and dark spots. By showing them this and then showing them a picture of maybe one of their teeth later on, they'll understand what's truly needed and why we're worried about it, because we've already identified that, hey, these teeth look really nasty. Next would be fractures. So show them, what a treatable fracture looks like, what a non-treatable fracture. Some of the occlusal problems, grinding and wear, including bite stability and what it means if wear keeps getting worse and worse. And then we also build in value saying we'll do an oral cancer screening, and we'll check to make sure that you don't have any of these signs that are really bad things. So that's about the 15 slides that are the new patient exam. It takes about 2 minutes total. The slideshow is up on Dental Success Network for you to download, I think, in the practice management room. But it's a great way to both educate your associate and also educate your new patients on what sort of things you offer and what sort of clinical guidelines you abide by. Next up would be pre or post-op phone calls. So what sort of procedures get doctor post-op calls? Is it anytime anesthesia is used, or is it maybe for only the more severe procedures like extractions, endodontics, implants, and sedation? And who calls? Is it the assistant or the doctor? And in some cases, some doctors or offices choose to pre-call for new patients, like the doctor would call them. And this is a time when you want to address that as well. Next would be labs and supplies. And so with labs and supplies, you're going to want to go through who are your preferred labs for both removable, fixed, potentially if you have a specific one for implants, night guards, sleeping appliances. If they want to add a new lab, sometimes I'll make the doctor write out a document, state why they want to use a new lab and the prices associated with it and what's going to be the advantage of using a new lab. Supplies, they should understand the costs on each supply. They should know the philosophy of inventory management, which is inventory is not really great to have on hand. Any bulk of supplies that are sitting on the back shelf is basically money that's sitting there. You don't want too much money to be sitting there because it's a waste of your money to be non-productive. So you should also know which supplies to use in certain situations, whether you have certain expensive supplies that are only used in high quality need situations versus a cheaper polyvinyl siloxane that is only used for temporaries. And they should also understand the monthly supply budget. In my practices, we do 4%. And so the associate knows every month I set my 4% budget, and all of the orders in that month need to stay under 4% of collections. And if they need other supplies, then they fill out a form saying why they need the new supplies, what the price is, and what the quality associated with that is. Next would be expectations. Let's wrap it up by saying that as the owner dentist or the senior doctors, we have expectations of our associates, and they also have expectations of us. So the biggest things is accountability agreements, which is basically their contract, although it's not a bad idea to have separate accountability agreements that you review monthly, that if you have the series of accountability agreements, we'll go through, hey, are we still on timeline for our CE? Are you doing everything that we expect of you in that timeline? So one of them, us owner dentists require the associate to work. We require them to follow the rules. We expect them to be a leader. We expect them to follow guidelines and treat staff with respect. And they should follow the operations manual. The associate expects the owner dentist to keep them busy. A lot of them expect some clinical guidance and sometimes some support on an emotional level. They expect us to provide some CE, potentially, and they expect to get paid from us. One of the ways that this can be successfully, this relationship can be successfully managed is by having monthly meetings where you kind of go over your production collections, number of cases that you started, your production per hour, new patients, and other issues. One idea would be to actually, at a certain point, integrate them into your metric system, whether that's Divergent, which is my method of choice. You could have them included on those Divergent emails every night or every morning, and so that would be something. One final mantra would be that do what's, when you talk to the associate, you got to tell them your core values. But in essence, what I tell my associates is that you should do what's best for the patient. Some of your dentistry will fail, but you always need to take it as a learning experience. And one of the experiences that I've had at a Four Seasons hotel is that it was raining out in Colorado, and I didn't have an umbrella. So a random employee went, opened up the gift shop, took out an umbrella, locked up the gift shop, and handed me the umbrella for free. Now, they lost a $40 umbrella, but they made a customer for life. And so with an associate, you need to explain to them that sometimes our dentistry will fail. Sometimes we need to eat that and redo it. But we always need to do what's best for the patient. And if we do that, everything else will work out. So that's the continuing education on how to onboard an associate. Hopefully you got a lot out of it. There will be some documents after you take the test and complete this that you can download, and they'll be available for you to hopefully onboard an associate. Hopefully it's a great experience. You pick the right one and it goes well. So thanks for watching today.